A desperate plea. Jax Reed wiped the sweat from his brow as the twin suns of Asteria beat down on him. He surveyed the neat rows of crops stretching out before him, the product of months of hard work. It wasn't the future he had once imagined for himself, but after the horrors he'd witnessed as a soldier, the peace and simplicity of life as a farmer on this remote colony world was exactly what he needed. As he turned to head back inside, a flash of movement in the sky caught his eye. A small spacecraft, trailing smoke, was plummeting towards his farm. Jax watched as the craft careened past and crashed into the hillside beyond with a distant boom. Fearing someone could be hurt, Jax jumped into his hover truck and sped towards the crash site. He found the ship half buried in the dirt, scorched and mangled. As he approached the crippled vessel, the hatch opened with a hiss, and a figure staggered out and collapsed. Jax rushed over and knelt beside the prone form, seeing it was a young female Zelenian. Her iridescent green skin was mottled with bruises and burns. As Jax cradled her head, her eyes fluttered open, fixing him with an intense violet gaze. "Please," she croaked, her voice weak. "Are you Jax Reed, the human soldier? I need your help." Jax was startled she knew his name. "I was a soldier, yes, but that was a long time ago. I'm just a farmer now. What happened to you?" "My name is Zara," the Zelenian said, struggling to sit up. "My people are under attack by the Vorax. Those monsters are slaughtering us, and they won't stop until every Zelenian is dead." Tears welled in her eyes. "You're our only hope." Jax's heart clenched at the anguish in Zara's voice, but he shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I don't fight anymore. I left that life behind for a reason." Zara gripped Jax's arm with surprising strength. "I know about the battle on Nexus Prime. I know the losses you suffered, the toll it took on you. But please, you have to help us. The Vorax are committing atrocities. They're wiping out entire villages, killing innocents. Men, women, children, no one is spared." Jax felt bile rise in his throat. He had seen such cruelty before, had borne witness to the depths of depravity sentient beings could sink to. The scars on his body and soul were a testament to that. Zara saw the conflict in Jax's eyes. "I'm not asking you to fight our war for us. All I want is for you to train us, teach us how to defend ourselves. My people are peaceful, we have no warriors. But we are willing to learn. Please, will you help us?" Jax closed his eyes, faces of fallen comrades and innocent victims flashing through his mind. He had walked away from the life of a soldier, had sworn never to take up arms again. But could he really turn his back on an entire people facing extinction? He took a deep breath and opened his eyes, meeting Zara's pleading gaze. "All right," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I'll train you and your people. I'll show you how to fight back against the Vorax. But I won't fight for you. I can't be that man again." Zara's face lit up with hope and gratitude. "Thank you," she breathed, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Jax helped Zara to her feet, supporting her as they walked back to his hover truck. As they drove back to his farmstead, Jax's mind was already racing, considering what he would need to do to turn a band of peaceful Zelenian civilians into a force capable of defending their homeworld. It wouldn't be easy, he knew. The Vorax were a vicious, warlike race, with technology and weapons far superior to anything the Zelenians possessed. But Jax had faced impossible odds before and prevailed. As he glanced over at Zara, seeing the determination burning in her eyes despite her injuries and exhaustion, Jax felt a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Purpose. He may have sworn off fighting, but he could still make a difference. He could still save lives. Forging a resistance. The Zelenian volunteers gathered in a clearing near Jax's farm, a motley assortment of farmers, artisans, and laborers. They clutched an array of makeshift weapons, farming tools, hunting bows, pipes and clubs. Jax walked down the line, assessing each one with a critical eye. "You may not be soldiers," he said, his voice ringing with authority, "but you have heart. You have the will to fight for your homes, your families. That counts for more than you know." Jax began putting the volunteers through a grueling training regimen. He taught them how to shoot, how to move silently through the dense forests, how to set traps and stage ambushes. It was hard work, and progress was slow. But the Zelenians threw themselves into the training with grim determination. Zara quickly emerged as one of the most promising fighters. She had a natural aptitude for tactics and an uncanny ability to rally her fellow Zelenians. Jax found himself spending more and more time with her, honing her skills and discussing strategies late into the night. As the weeks passed, the resistance began to take shape. They scored their first victory against a Vorax scouting party, ambushing the hulking warriors and dispatching them with ruthless efficiency. The success bolstered the Zelenians' confidence and more volunteers flocked to join. But their victories did not come without cost. The Vorax, enraged by the resistance, redoubled their efforts to crush the Zelenians. They began raiding villages with increasing frequency, leaving devastation and death in their wake. One particularly brutal raid left a town in ashes, the streets littered with the bodies of civilians. As Jax and Zara walked through the carnage, their hearts heavy with grief and anger, Zara turned to Jax with fire in her eyes. "We have to stop them," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained rage. "We have to make them pay for what they've done." Jax put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We will," he promised. "But we have to be smart about it. We can't take them head-on, not yet." In the aftermath of the raid, more Zelenians came forward to join the resistance. Farmers, shopkeepers, even elders and children, all united in their determination to drive the Vorax from their world. As the resistance grew in number and skill, Jax and Zara found themselves drawn closer together. Late one night, as they sat by a crackling fire, Zara opened up about her past. "I lost my whole family to the Vorax," she confided, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "My parents, my brothers, all gone. Sometimes I feel like I have nothing left to live for." Jax took her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers. "You have your people," he said softly. "You have this fight. And you have me. I'll always be here for you, Zara." Zara leaned her head on Jax's shoulder, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "What about you?" she asked. "What made you give up being a soldier?" Jax was silent for a long moment, staring into the dancing flames. "I lost too much," he said finally, his voice heavy with old pain. "Friends, innocence, pieces of myself. I couldn't take it anymore." Zara squeezed his hand. "You're a good man, Jax Reed. Your heart is what makes you strong, not your ability to fight." As the night wore on, Jax and Zara talked of their hopes for the future, of a Zelenia free from the shadow of the Vorax. And in each other, they found a reason to keep fighting, no matter the odds. For the first time in years, Jax began to believe that perhaps, with Zara by his side, there was a chance for something more than just survival. There was a chance for a life, for love, for a future worth fighting for. Turning the tide. Armed with new tactics and skills, the Zelenian resistance began to take the fight to the Vorax. They staged daring raids on enemy supply lines, sabotaged communications, and ambushed patrols with increasing effectiveness. Jax's strategies, combined with the Zelenians' unique abilities, their enhanced speed, agility, and camouflage, proved to be a potent combination. Jax and Zara often led these missions personally, their bond growing stronger with each shared danger. During one particularly risky operation, they infiltrated a heavily guarded Vorax base to steal critical intelligence. As they crept through the dimly lit corridors, Zara used her ability to blend into shadows to scout ahead, while Jax covered her with his rifle. They made it to the command center and Zara hacked into the mainframe, downloading files that detailed the Vorax's battle plans. But as they made their escape, alarms blared to life and heavily armed Vorax soldiers flooded the base. Jax and Zara fought their way out in a hail of gunfire and explosions, their skills pushed to the limit. They barely made it out alive, but the intelligence they'd gathered was invaluable. As they pored over the stolen files back at their hidden base, a grim picture emerged. The Vorax weren't just trying to conquer Zelenia, they were planning to eradicate the Zelenians entirely, seeing them as an inferior race unfit to live. Jax and Zara brought this evidence to the Zelenian leadership, urging them to mobilize every resource to resist the Vorax. But the leaders, long used to peace, were reluctant to fully commit to a war. They wanted to try to negotiate, to find a diplomatic solution. Frustrated but undeterred, Jax and Zara continued their work with the resistance. They knew time was running out. The Vorax were preparing for a massive assault that would end the war once and for all. Their fears were confirmed when, during a meeting with the Zelenian leaders, a massive explosion rocked the building. Vorax assassins had infiltrated the capital, seeking to decapitate the Zelenian government. Jax and Zara sprang into action, fighting off the assassins with fierce determination. The battle was brutal, but they managed to evacuate the leaders and fend off the attack. In the aftermath, as smoke still hung heavy in the air, the Zelenian Prime Minister approached Jax and Zara, his face grave. "You were right," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "Negotiation isn't an option. The Vorax won't stop until we're all dead. We must fight." With the full support of the government, the resistance began preparing for the final battle. Weapons were distributed, defenses fortified, and every able-bodied Zelenian was called to arms. Jax and Zara worked tirelessly, training new recruits and planning their strategy. They knew the Vorax would throw everything they had at them. It would be a fight for survival, for the very existence of the Zelenian people. Late one night, as they stood together watching the Asterian moons rise over the capital, Zara turned to Jax, her eyes bright with emotion. "Whatever happens," she said, "I want you to know that meeting you, fighting beside you, it's meant everything to me." Jax pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "We're going to win this," he promised, his voice fierce with conviction. "We're going to build a future together, a future for all Zelenians. I love you, Zara." Under the light of the moons, they kissed, pouring all their hopes, fears, and dreams into the embrace. They knew that the coming battle would decide the fate of Zelenia. But in that moment, they drew strength from each other, ready to face whatever came, together. The final stand. The Vorax army descended on the Zelenian capital like a tidal wave of destruction. Thousands of heavily armed warriors, supported by massive war machines, advanced relentlessly, their goal nothing less than total annihilation. The Zelenian resistance met them head-on, determined to defend their homeland to the last. Jax and Zara were at the forefront, leading a fierce counterattack. The Zelenians fought with incredible bravery and skill, putting everything Jax had taught them into practice. The battle raged for hours, the din of gunfire, explosions, and screams filling the air. The ground was soon littered with the dead and dying of both sides. But the Zelenians held their ground, refusing to yield an inch. Seeing the tide of battle at a stalemate, Jax gathered a small team for a daring mission. Their target, the Vorax command center at the rear of the enemy lines. If they could take it out, the Vorax would be thrown into disarray. Zara insisted on coming along, her fierce determination mirrored in Jax's eyes. Together, they led the strike team, infiltrating deep into enemy territory. They fought their way through hordes of Vorax warriors, their armor stained with blood and sweat. Finally, they reached the command center, a massive fortified bunker. As Jax and his team engaged the guards outside, drawing their fire, Zara slipped inside, her stealth abilities allowing her to evade detection. Inside, she confronted the Vorax commander, a hulking brute of a warrior renowned for his cruelty. "Your reign of terror ends here," Zara declared, her voice ringing with righteous fury. The commander laughed, drawing his massive blade. "Foolish girl. You think you can defeat me? I'll crush you like the insect you are. They clashed in a furious melee, Zara's agility and speed matched against the commander's brute strength. It was a battle of wills as much as skills, and for a moment, it seemed the commander would overpower her. But Zara thought of all she had lost, all she was fighting for. With a burst of desperate strength, she plunged her blade into the commander's chest, piercing his black heart. As the commander fell, Zara activated the bunker's self-destruct sequence. She raced out just as Jax and his team finished dispatching the guards. Together, they fled as the command center exploded behind them, the blast shaking the earth. With their leadership destroyed, the Vorax forces fell into confusion and disarray. The Zelenians pressed their advantage, driving the invaders back. Faced with the ferocity and determination of the resistance, the Vorax broke and fled, their once proud army reduced to a scattered rabble. As the last of the enemy ships fled Zelenia's atmosphere, a great cheer went up from the Zelenian forces. Against all odds, they had won. Their world was free. In the aftermath of the battle, as the Zelenians began to count their dead and tend to their wounded, Jax and Zara stood amidst the ruins of the capital, holding each other tight. "We did it," Zara whispered, tears of joy and grief mingling on her face. "We saved our people." Jax kissed her forehead, his own eyes wet with emotion. "You saved our people," he corrected. "You were the heart of this resistance, Zara. You never gave up, even when all seemed lost." Around them, the Zelenians began to chant Zara's name, their voices rising in a chorus of triumph and gratitude. In Zara, they saw a leader, a hero who had guided them through the darkest of times. Jax looked at the woman he loved, pride and admiration shining in his eyes. Together, they had faced the unthinkable and emerged victorious. The battle was won, but he knew the work of rebuilding was just beginning. Whatever the future held, Jax knew one thing for certain. With Zara by his side, he was ready to face it, no longer a soldier adrift, but a man with a purpose, a home, and a love worth fighting for. A new dawn. In the days following the Vorax's defeat, the Zelenians began the slow process of rebuilding. The capital lay in ruins, and many other cities and villages had been badly damaged in the fighting. But the Zelenians approached the task with the same determination and unity that had seen them through the war. Jax and Zara were at the forefront of the reconstruction efforts, their leadership and vision guiding the Zelenian people. They organized teams to clear rubble, rebuilt homes, and distributed supplies to those in need. It was hard work, but the Zelenians were resilient and industrious. However, the specter of war still loomed. Scattered pockets of Vorax resistance remained, leaderless but still dangerous. They staged raids on outlying settlements, striking quickly and then melting back into the wilderness. To counter this threat, Jax took on the task of training a permanent Zelenian defense force. He chose the most promising recruits from the resistance, those who had shown exceptional skill and courage in the final battle. Zara was among them, her abilities and leadership making her a natural choice. Under Jax's tutelage, the defense force became a formidable fighting unit, dedicated to protecting Zelenia's hard-won peace. They patrolled the borders, rooted out Vorax strongholds, and ensured the safety of the Zelenian people. As the weeks turned into months, life on Zelenia began to return to a semblance of normalcy. Fields were replanted, businesses reopened, and the sound of laughter began to replace the echoes of gunfire. The Zelenian government, recognizing the instrumental role Zara had played in the liberation of their world, asked her to take on a new role, that of a leader and representative of the Zelenian people. Zara was humbled by the request, but with Jax's encouragement, she accepted. In a solemn ceremony, attended by Zelenians from all walks of life, Zara was sworn in as the new prime minister. As she took the oath of office, she looked out over the sea of faces, seeing in them the hope and determination that had carried them through the darkest of times. Later, as Jax and Zara stood on the balcony of the newly rebuilt Capitol building, watching the sun set over the peaceful Zelenian landscape, Jax took Zara's hand in his. "I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice filled with love and admiration. You've come so far, accomplished so much. The Zelenian people couldn't ask for a better leader. Zara leaned into Jax, her head resting on his shoulder. I couldn't have done it without you, she said softly. You believed in me, in us, even when I doubted myself. Your strength, your heart, it's what got us through. Jax turned to face Zara, his hands cupping her face gently. You are my strength, Zara. You gave me a reason to fight, a reason to believe again. And now, together, we have a chance to build something beautiful, a future for our people, for us. Under the fading light of the Asterian sky, Jax and Zara kissed, a promise of a lifetime of love and partnership. They had been through the fires of war, had faced unimaginable horrors and losses. But they had emerged stronger, united by a bond that could never be broken. As the stars began to emerge in the night sky, Jax and Zara looked out over their world, a world they had fought for, a world they had saved. It was a new dawn for Zelenia, and for them. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced everything else, together, with courage, determination, and an unshakable love that would light their way through even the darkest of nights. The war was over. The future, bright with promise, was theirs to shape. And shape it they would, hand in hand, heart to heart, always.